I was thinking how I can, with the intro song, if I can add like some jingle bells with the rhythm. Like, I don't know, maybe not. It's silly.
Welcome to RetroGroove. Enjoy your voyage.
Howdy, and welcome to Retro Groove. I'm Adam C.
And I'm Liam D.
And this is a podcast where we talk about music that stands the test of time, the albums and artists that have shaped and reshaped the sonic landscape, as well as covering new music from those artists. So today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to have a holiday gift guide episode, talk about some Christmas stuff a little bit. But first, we'll get into what we've been listening to, what we've purchased recently, and some other tidbits of info. Liam, how things going in your neck of the woods?
I am good. This is our post-Thanksgiving episode, and so you and I have talked a little bit about, I haven't hidden the fact that I've gone to some concerts and I've gone out and do some stuff.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy come to town as buddies do around the holidays, and hit me up and say, let's get lunch the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And so I did. And then he texted me that evening and said that he wasn't feeling well, which was not great. And then Thursday morning on Thanksgiving, he texted me and said that he has never felt worse.
Oh,
and
my
that
God.
He got tested and has full-blown breakthrough, like he's fully vaxxed.
Whoa.
COVID. And I'm like, cool, we had burgers together yesterday, so now what happens?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I had some self-tests in the cabinet, and the next day I went out and got some more, but I masked up, and I had a masked Thanksgiving. Like, I called my aunt and my parents, and I was like, look, if you don't want me there,
right.
I get it. Like, I am sorry that I was playing fast and loose with a buddy, and this is what happens to me. And so, like, they were really chill about it. But yeah, I wore a mask all through the holiday. It was a lovely time with my family.
Good.
And it was a good time. But we did a bunch of other things. You know, my brother-in-law was in town, and obviously, like, I've got a little daughter, and so we had all this stuff planned. Mm-hmm. And so basically, what my process is I would do a self-test about half an hour to an hour before we did anything. And so, like, we went to a pinball arcade, and so I tested myself, and then we went to eat dinner outside, and I tested myself, and then we went to go see Ghostbusters, which was awesome. Ghostbusters was fantastic.
Nice.
And I kept my mask on and tested myself, and so I never got it, and it's great. And, like, you know, this is a weird
so you're
virus. I'm good, but, like, it definitely, I don't know if you've bought the concert tickets that you and I have been like, come on, Adam, you can go to a concert. But it definitely checked me for a second, where I'm like, man, I was at Madison Square Garden and Little Rock clubs, and, like, who knows?
Yeah.
Like once you have that moment of, like, man, I was
once you have the scare
right up against it, like, it was right in front of me. Then you start, I feel like everything came alive around me, and I'm like, oh no, it might have been around me all this time and I just didn't know it.
Right.
So it's a little freaky, but ultimately a good holiday.
Good.
Yeah. How about you?
I mean, we had a chill holiday. Hung out with Dan and his family. So that's always amazing. Let the cousins run around and have fun. So, but yeah, just kept it local, kept it family basically, and didn't really do a whole lot other than stay at home, hang out, have fun together, just enjoy, the kids having time off from school. I actually took time off of work, which I very rarely do.
Congrats.
I've been working crazy. So I actually took a whole week off. And
nice.
It felt really good. And now I'm coming back and feeling more productive. So that's, there's something to say for that.
I mean, that's the purpose of it, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And then the only
Yeah.
other thing that I did was I'd spent a lot of time and got through 2/3 of the Get Back Peter Jackson docuseries, which we'll talk about a little bit, which is, as a Beatles fan myself, but also a huge fan of the creative process and someone that enjoys creating music myself, it's kind of a dream come true for me, being able to just kind of be in the room practically, watching them go through their creative process, forming songs out of thin air, out of boredom or out of necessity or out of protest. You know what I mean? It's just really, really interesting and intriguing to me. And also confirmed some opinions that I had about certain members of of the band. It definitely solidified some opinions that I'll probably keep to myself for now.
Yeah, I want to hear all about that. I think we're going to need to do a deep dive on that because
Probably.
I'm a Beatles fan, but I'm not a deep fan. I'm not, I was raised on them by my mom, and I'm familiar enough, and I like the music, but I'm not immersed in it as much, and so
Right.
I'm excited to watch this because I do feel like it's an interesting. I've never watched any sort of rock doc about them, and there's so much material out there, so many books and
a lot.
features and stories and stuff. It seems like a weird place to jump in, but it also, Peter Jackson's cool. He does a good job on stuff. I liked King Kong. Lord of the Rings was great. So let's see what he does with the Beatles.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily have that Peter Jackson stamp on it. You know what I mean? Because there's no
giant beasts.
it's interesting, and he's taken something that, a lot of people would probably find pretty boring and mundane, and, weaved the story from that, which is impressive in itself.
Right.
But it's just kind of feels like sitting in a chair, being there during that creative process. And if that's something that, interests you, then it's profoundly interesting. But if not, you're probably going to find it boring, just being honest.
And wait, so who does Andy Serkis play in this movie?
Andy plays Yoko.
Is he George Harrison? No. Andy plays Yoko.
I don't know. Made sense to me.
That's very funny.
That I will say, and then we can move on, but that there was one point where I did have to fast forward a little bit when Yoko inevitably ended up on a microphone. I was like, nope, can't handle this. And I skipped forward until I didn't see her on screen anymore and continued. So I probably skipped a couple minutes of Yoko
howling. Yeah.
Yes.
I think a lot of people have done that over the years, so that's fine.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I guess one question that I do have for you, though, because you and I were messaging this week, is
yes,
Muppet Christmas Carol vinyl.
So we talked about this briefly last episode. You grabbed it, right? You were able to get a copy.
I got one of each. I justified it because I am going to send one to my sister. My sister lives in some obscure part of Mexico, and so the shipping to her is time consuming and very expensive. So I was like, I went into this thinking like, yeah, I'm going to be spending a bunch of money on this because it's like, this will be my nostalgia gift to her. It'll be a nice gesture, and who knows if it'll get to her on Christmas, and it's probably going to cost twice as much as I'm paying for it now just to get it to her. So I precursor this by saying, like, I went into this being like, I'm going to spend a bunch of money here. Like, everything was baked into this, but you get hit with that shipping fee, and
oh god,
yeah. I didn't see that coming.
That was the deal breaker for me, to pay $15 shipping on a $30 record. I honestly mulled it over, and I couldn't do it. You know, I have moving expenses. I'm in the middle of a move. I'm still reeling a little bit in the spending account from grabbing that OLED, and I picked up a few games with some Black Friday deals that they had. So yeah, I just couldn't do it. Like, as much as I love that movie and it's fantastic music, I couldn't justify the $14 or $15 shipping. I really couldn't.
No, I hear that.
But that's me. I'm glad you grabbed it though.
I'm hoping it gets here in time. Like, I can't. It seemed like something they had in hand and it was going to ship pretty quickly, but with shipping right now and vinyl right now, I just don't. I never know. So I'd love to have it here to play on my turntable during the actual holidays.
That would be awesome.
So fingers crossed it gets here in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
What else?
So I got. I had ordered this a while back and it came in. There's this funny indie game called West of Loathing.
Oh yeah.
Which it's like a spaghetti western, but it's an RPG. It's very funny. The art is stick figures, but it looks like the most creative, twisted 16-year-old doodled it in his notebook. It is hilarious, and I remember listening to the music, and this is a game that I played through 1.5 times. I bought this game. I had a physical. It was like a limited run, super rare, whatever it was, years ago. I bought it. I took it on a trip with me. My car got broken into, and all my stuff got stolen, including my Switch and 18 game cards.
No.
Yeah, and that was one of them. And so I had to then I downloaded the digital version of it, and then replayed it again because it was really fun and I was having a good time with it. So the music was ingrained in my head because I played it so much. Definitely suggest the game. If you can track down the vinyl, I haven't looked to see how rare it is at this point, but it was kind of a no-brainer for me. It's going to be something that I'm going to throw on when I'm kicking around or sweeping up or something like that, and I'm just going to have a smile on my face the whole time. So I grabbed that came in. I haven't popped it on yet, but I'm excited to.
There's no sales history for it on Discogs. There's one for sale for someone selling it for $60.
Yeah, I mean, I got it. It was like $30. It was like a normal price. I feel like that's just it's new and it hasn't kind of bounced around yet. But video game vinyl gets weird, so you never know.
Yeah, it sure does.
I skipped Black Friday almost across the board, and again, part of it was health scare stuff, but part of it was I looked at the, Black Friday, there's usually a record store day tie-in. There was this year. I looked at the lineup. There's a handful of things that were interesting, but nothing that drove me to the store. I wound up getting to my local, I think I went on Sunday, maybe even Monday. And the one thing that I was looking for, it wasn't even a record store day exclusive. It was just a record store day first, like the first pressing. And they were out of it. I didn't sweat it too much. I grabbed the CD. It was Jason Isbell. He put out so he put out an album basically around the last election. He said, if Georgia flips blue, he's going to make a covers album celebrating musicians from Georgia or whatever, and it happened. And so he made good on that. And the price of entry. So I love REM. And he does 2 REM songs on this. So immediately, price of entry was paid. He does Night Swimming and Driver 8. Great REM songs. He kills it. He's got a bunch of guests on there. Definitely worth checking out. There's a James Brown cover. There's an Indigo's Girls cover. There's some great stuff on there.
Oh, sweet.
So definitely worth checking it out. It's on all DSPs and everything. You can stream it wherever. And then, so decorating the Christmas tree. I'm a huge Brian Fallon fan. He put out a Christmas album of hymns that his mother used to sing when he was growing up, the stuff that she was singing as they were doing their decorating. Very spiritual, very devout. Just gorgeous, like him on a piano or him on a guitar. And it's funny, like I threw it on as we were decorating, and I realized that my daughter's experience with Christmas music is mainly the Mariah Carey, Pentatonics, the normal like radio big stuff, the tree lighting, whatever it is. And so when I put it on, she was like, "Is this Christmas music?" And then he does First Noel, he does Silent Night. Like she recognized some of the songs, but I was like, no, this is Christmas music. It's like a different kind of Christmas music. It's hymns, it's church based, but like it's gorgeous Christmas music. There's a lot of breadth to what Christmas music is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'd love to know, do you have stuff that you listen to around the house or like that you get into around? I mean, it's a whole subject that we can get into, obviously, but like,
oh yeah, we could do a whole episode on it, but we're pretty varied around here. Everything from
Charlie Brown,
everything,
Brown,
right? Yeah. Everything from Charlie Brown and the like Mickey Mouse, Disney characters singing Christmas songs. So it's like, we'll go from that and, Goofy singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" to, Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong doing some amazing classics, to Amy Grant. So we're all over the map. Burl Ives, there's a Burl Ives Christmas album that gets a lot of play every single year. But it's definitely all over the place.
Nice. Yeah, I like that though. I mean, and you can Christmas music can be catered to the situation, whether it's like quiet time at home or whether you got family over and everybody's kind of jubilant or there's kids there. And then, so just honestly lately, like work, I've had a lot of like computer time. Like I have to sit and just like grind through documents and putting stuff together and whatever. And so there's been a lot of windows where I'm sitting on the couch for a period of time, just kind of grinding. And so I've had, I've just had the TV on a bunch more than I usually do. I was like just catching up on some shows and watching a bunch of Bob's Burgers. Like I haven't watched that in forever. The music in that show is so funny. I have a CD. They put out this great Sub Pop, I think, did a couple years ago. This great collection of like each episode has a song. Like there's basically a song in every episode if you watch the show, and so they collect all of it there, and it's really cool. It's like there's like 70 things on this album. It's great. So I've just been like tossing that on in the car because it's reminding me of these like moments where I'm chuckling as I'm dragging myself through work. And then there's this show on FX called What We Do in the Shadows. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or if you were like a Flight of the Conchords fan. But so it was based on a movie that Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords did a few years ago. The show's hilarious, but there's this intro song that is so haunting. And I Googled it immediately. Like the first time I heard it, I'm like, what is this song? And it's this folk singer from the 60s. It's this obscure song from the 60s by this artist, Norma Tanega. She had one song called Walkin' My Dog Named Cat or Walkin' My Cat Named Dog. Or it was such a weird one-off thing. And they pulled this deep song of hers. And so I started just digging around in this random lady's catalog of like, I mean, she has like 2 or 3 albums. It's like there's nothing there. Walking My Cat Named Dog. But like apparently this album I've never heard of this album before. And apparently like it was a whole buzzy thing for a while. Like it's been repressed on vinyl a few times. Like she's just has this one-off album of weird folk oddities, and she's a great songwriter. Like it's not tongue in cheek. It's not like I like Tiny Tim a lot. Like I like that kind of bizarro. That's not what this is. This is a little absurdist, but also kind of cutting and very insightful. So I definitely suggest someone you go check her out. Just give her a little Google. It's not a whole lot of videos of her. You know, she she kind of faded into obscurity and lived a normal life after these hits in the 60s. But like, it's very cool. And the show's great. And the song hooks you immediately. It's crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. And I think that's about it for me. So you were watching some Get Back. Did it make you dive into the Beatles catalog again? Like go back, get yourself?
Well, it definitely gave me a lot more perspective on the Get Back album, because I had very little idea other than the most basic of facts regarding just the backstory of the album, and it's considered their last album, but it was recorded before Abbey Road. There's a little bit of, weird time discrepancy there. But, for example, I knew who Billy Preston was. There's a couple of his songs that are just personal favorites of mine that I'll throw on from time to time. But I literally didn't even know that he was on that album. He was essentially a fifth Beatle. So that threw me down the rabbit hole of listening to Billy Preston again and getting into some of his deeper cuts. And so that ended up getting me on this kind of funk music, funk and soul from that era. Listening to playlists that would include, stuff like the Gap Band and Rick James and all that kind of stuff, Isley Brothers. And that ended up, I heard that song Juicy Fruit, which of course was sampled by Notorious B.I.G. for his song Juicy. And I was like, oh shoot, I know what I'm listening to. So I'm driving around listening to Notorious B.I.G. because
amazing.
So good. Yeah. And so I just love that story arc in my listening over this past week, going from the Beatles to Billy Preston to random funk and soul playlists to listening to Notorious B.I.G. I just love it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's been my kind of listening pattern the past week. I ended up buying I saw it pop up. I don't know if it was a Black Friday deal or just a random, price drop, but I picked up the first Foo Fighters album on vinyl, the self-titled first record with Dave playing all the instruments on it.
Yeah.
For like $12. I mean, it was
nice.
dirt cheap. And I love that album, and it, has a lot of personal meaning to me because I listened to it a ton when it came out believe it was 95 off the top of my head. Because I heard This Is a Call on the radio and loved it and instantly fell in love with it and wanted to buy the album before I knew that it was Dave Grohl. Because I knew who Dave Grohl was.
Oh, wow.
As a Nirvana fan, not a super fan, but, fan of them. Me and my brother would listen to This Is a Call every time it came on the radio, and I, recorded it on a cassette tape and I got that.
Man.
But I had no idea until later that it was Dave Grohl playing all the instruments. We just thought it was some random band on the alternative radio station. So that, and I posted a picture of it, but I bought, I can't remember exactly when I bought it, but it would have been around that time. It was 95 or 96. I actually bought the 7-inch 45 RPM, This Is a Call single with Winnebago on the side B.
Oh my God.
And I love it. It's such a great B-side. And
you still have it, or is it gone?
No, I have it. I posted a picture of it. I put it up on the Instagram account, but awesome. It's great. So I'm glad that 25 years later, I now have the full album. I have the LP that goes along with that. So I was happy to add that to my collection. But that was basically it, along with a lot of other purchases recently and moving expenses. I didn't go too crazy with the purchases. Plus, with having 2 kids, we got Christmas coming up, so I'm trying to haven't even gotten into those purchases yet. So I'm just trying to stash aside anything that wasn't going to moving expenses.
Yeah, and shout out to the Instagram RetroGroove_podcast. Check it out.
Yeah,
definitely got some cool stuff that gets thrown up on there. It sounds like Foo Fighters, Billy Preston. It sounds like you might have a little Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on the brain.
Well, that's definitely
you just
true.
got 2 inductees there. Yeah.
That is absolutely true. I did end up watching the induction ceremony mostly in its entirety when it aired.
It's pretty long. It's 3 hours or something. Yeah,
it's quite long. But standout moments from that were Carole King's
with full body suit. Okay.
I do like her as an artist, but I can't say I was a fan of her rendition during that performance.
Fair enough, yeah.
But I really thoroughly enjoyed, and I think I did. I put it up on the Instagram. But I thoroughly enjoyed Carole King's performance, and that was really moving. And what surprised me the most was LL Cool J's performance.
Yeah.
That was
first of all,
nuts.
Can we talk about Dr. Dre for a second? Because
I
feel like
absolutely.
I haven't seen Dr. Dre in like 10 years. I feel like I don't know where he's been in a lab. I don't know. That dude looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. When he walked on stage, I was like, that's Dr. Dre, but also that's Dr. Dre? Like, I remember what he looked like the Chronic 2001, you know, like where I was like, this guy's older. This isn't the Chronic. It's the Chronic 2001, you know, like, wow, 20 years later, that dude looks good and like carried himself like that. That was a great fantastic speech, short, but like hit all the marks. Dr. Dre killed it.
Yeah.
And then to have Eminem come out during LL's performance was just so cool. And J-Lo. Yeah.
Yep. That was a really, really great performance. And then obviously I love seeing Paul and, seeing him playing with the beat with Foo Fighters was really amazing. Obviously that wasn't an accident that they got up and played Get Back while we've got Get Back, the docuseries coming out, but still, so there's a little bit of product placement, probably,
of course,
but it was still amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, the McCartney induction speech was great. I mean, like we were joking before the show a little bit, but like you can't compare anyone to the Beatles. But there are funny things that happen in certain artists' catalogs where you're like, that seems. I think I've heard that before. Right. And there are things with the Foo Fighters where you're like, man, if they're not following a similar trajectory to this band, this iconic band that like in its moment, the Beatles were huge, but also were not, they were a pop band and they were not embraced then like they are now by the music purist snob archival whatever you want to call them. Like it wasn't until kind of after the fact where everyone was like, man, that was really some enlightened stuff there, like
it took some time,
really picked it apart. So I don't know, man, it's pretty crazy. Like
it is crazy.
It was cool, and it's cool to see them like they're bros. That's awesome. The Go-Go's were fantastic.
Oh yes, I forgot to mention that was really good.
The Go-Go's were great. Chappelle was funny. Jay-Z's speech was good, but it was long. And I have to say, like, you had LL come out of the gate. Carole King, who really doesn't perform anymore, got up on stage and performed. The Go-Go's, who haven't had an album in 20 years and like have had some issues, got up on stage. And Jay-Z didn't perform and didn't have anyone perform for him. It was just, it felt like a missed moment. Again, to each their own. And if he didn't feel like there was a right way to do it, then that's fine. But it seemed like it seemed like the speech could have been a little shorter and I could have used like a cool medley. But I will say that the montage, and I don't know who put that together, of every amazing artist, actor, like David Letterman. I mean, there's this whole montage that they run, and it almost went a little too long as well.
It was pretty long.
Like, it was like 3 or 4 minutes long, and it was just a who's who doing like spoken word Jay-Z lyrics, a collection from his entire catalog, and it was very cool to watch. And so there is a bit of a performance there
somewhat.
But it's not the same.
I feel like he either didn't want to, like, I wouldn't want to go up after that LL Cool J performance. That was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that guy.
So, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but my Lord, that was an outstanding performance.
Yeah, LL is fantastic. And the fact that he's still got what he's got after 40 years or whatever it is basically now, it's crazy.
Insane.
There, you're never going to have a consistent tone through the whole thing. And so I think the Everly Brothers tribute was really cool with Brandy, but it's like, it's a lull. The Gary Clark Jr. performance was cool, but it's a lull. It was like, it's him solo blues up on the stage playing a song nobody knew, but it's Gary Clark Jr. He's amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
So there's peaks and valleys, but Foo Fighters' performance is great. Go-Go's were killer. I think it was an awesome show altogether. The thing that I need to make sure that I was like, I have to bring this up is I turned to my wife as we were kind of watching through this, and I was like, I think there's been all this talk about Britney lately and the kind of mistreatment of her, and it's all 100% true. 1,000,000%. Like, she had all these terrible things done to her in the media and her family and everything. Right. But there's another thing that went on there that they did in the industry and we did as fans, which is lumped other artists of that era. It's what you do. Like, there's someone who's a catalyst, and then you're like, well, then there's the Strokes and there's the Hives and there's the White Stripes, and then you look at them and you're like, oh no, they're all totally different. But you lump them together. And Christina Aguilera got up on stage to do that Tina Turner song, and I'm like, she should have never been compared to Britney Spears. Britney Spears is fantastic. She is a incredible performer. Christina Aguilera is one of the most talented singers. Like, she brought the place down. I thought she was absolutely stellar. She is a massive talent, and I just sat there. It was like one of those moments where I sat there and I was like, why isn't she Adele? Like, why isn't she the biggest artist out there still? Like, she is so good. She's so good. And she's so talented. That's
a good question.
That performance, I think she got lumped Genie in a Bottle, and like they were like, she got branded in with everything else. And then she had her dirty moment. Britney had her toxic moment. Like, there was all these things. And I think that she never had a chance to shine. I mean, look, she's Christina Aguilera. She's been on TV. She was on The Voice. Yeah. Like, she's a massive star.
She could do whatever she wants at this point.
She should. There's something about her. I feel the same way about Pink. There's something about some of these artists where they got lumped together into these groups and deserve their spot in the pantheon of their true talent and abilities. And I hope that it gets there at some point, because they're already huge stars.
They went through the same machine. You know what I mean? They both came out of Disney. They both were presented as, the bubblegum pop teenage sensation. And so they kind of were more or less forced along the same trajectory. So, we almost didn't have a chance at the time to separate them as their own thing. Now, obviously,
it was marketed that way.
Right, exactly. And now we know a lot better, and we can see them for their individual strengths. And, but yeah, I agree with you. Her voice is unmatched.
Crazy.
She doesn't sound like anybody else, and she can do things that hardly any other singer can do. And so you're right. Like, why isn't she Adele? And is it because of the type of music that she put out 20 years ago? Who knows? You know what I mean? I don't know the answer to that, but, you know, I feel like Britney is in a similar, I know she has said that she's, you know, done performing. Basically, she doesn't want to do it anymore, which is, you know, God bless her, live your life the way you want to live it. But I wonder, like, where would she go from here as far as a music career? You know what I mean? What kind of music would she make? Would it sound like a more mature version of the Britney Spears that we've gotten in the past? Would it sound like something more modern?
Could be like what Madonna just kept reinventing herself through the 90s into the 2000s. It could be something like that. Yeah.
Much to my chagrin.
Yeah. It had its moments.
Sorry.
That's fair.
Not a Madonna fan. Anyway.
No, that's fine. Speaking of Adele, though, so there's this interesting thing. I don't know if you saw it, but obviously 30 came out. Big deal. Huge album. It's gorgeous. And she blew up Spotify's spot. Because Spotify, the default, if you don't use the platform, is when you click on an album, it doesn't play it in sequence.
Oh, really?
Which is, I don't really use Spotify much, so I wasn't aware of this.
I wasn't either.
But she was pretty upset. You know, she's Adele, so people listen. She started posting and complaining in media saying, you know, artists take a lot of time and energy and focus, and there's a craft to album sequencing.
Oh yeah.
And then you put it on one of the biggest streaming platforms in the world, and when you click play, all of that's thrown out the window, and you don't know how you're going to hear this product that someone, Adele in this situation, spent 5 years trying to put together. She's curated this experience for her fans, and Spotify is saying, well, you know what? We're going to let the computer decide how you're going to hear instead.
Yeah.
So I just, as a point, I mean, I love the idea of album sequencing.
Yeah.
I'm often disheartened when I pick up an album from an artist that I'm excited to hear and it feels not cohesive. Like, I feel like, I don't want to say you can tell, but I know that there are times when the track order gets shuffled from what the artist intended to what the label intended, or even the manager intended, thinking like, hey, the hit needs to be near the front, or we need to spread the hits out. Like, this is the first single, so that's song 1 or 2, and then the next one has to be song like 8 or 9, and then you just fill in the middle. Like, there's these marketing ways of doing it, and then there's actual album sequencing. It's nothing new. It's been going on forever.
Right.
But it is interesting to hear an artist come out, and Spotify did something about it. Like, Adele complained, and they were like, yeah, okay, we're gonna get rid of that. Like, now it's an option you can turn on. But it's not the default. Like, the default is the sequence. Yeah.
It should never be the default. Yeah. Especially, I'm someone that really appreciates the full album experience. Yeah. And that would annoy me to no end. So I'm glad that I don't really use Spotify either, but that seems stupid to me.
Yeah, you don't use Spotify because you don't want to contribute money to artificial military artificial insurance for the military.
that is a new reason to not use Spotify among the many others. But
that's true.
No, I'm vinyl and Apple Music, and that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm in the Apple ecosystem, so I have no reason to try to get into any other streaming platforms.
Yeah. But it shouldn't take Adele to have to do this kind of thing. But it is nice when someone can exert that and they
sure.
listen and there's some change to it. In the same vein of artists taking control of their careers, and it's funny, we've seen a few artists do this now, and I've kind of jokingly thought of it as a 401k, as best a rock band can get. But like The Offspring did this a while back, and there was like a weird series of articles around it, and they were like, no, we're going to tour and we're going to make new music, but we want to have a chunk of change from our catalog.
Why not?
And so Motley Crue just sold the masters to all of their back catalog to BMG for a cool $150 million.
Jeez.
So that this, again, like if you're not well versed in this sort of legalese, band can still perform these songs, no problem.
Yep.
They still are songwriters, so they do get a cut of the publishing, and that also gives them a say in some of the usage on this. You know, if you own the masters, you kind of have a lot of control about putting it in a Domino's commercial if you wanted to.
Right.
But like if you have publishing rights, you do get a vote. You get a seat at the table still. So it's not like they're giving up complete control of it all. And like I said, like there is no retirement plan in rock and roll other than just performing until you die or hoping that Spotify pays you your 0.011 cent for all those streams. So this is actually kind of genius. There are different approaches that bands have to this exact same conundrum. And again, a lot of them is we're just going to go play X amount of shows every year to make our paycheck. Again, not to bring up REM too many times, I love where REM is kind of at on all of this. And this is me editorializing a little bit, but
go for it.
They have their 40 years worth of catalog, or I think when they their last album, they were at the 30-something year mark.
Yeah.
And they got to a point where they had 10, 12 albums. They had all these moments that all have important songs on them. And so every year or two, they have something to celebrate, you know? So like this year, it's the New Adventures in Hi-Fi anniversary.
Yeah.
Next year, it's the band's anniversary. And the year before that, it was the anniversary of Reveal or Monster or whatever it is. Like they can repackage. They have their vault with a bunch of archives. Like they have curated their back catalog and their vault, and they can do fan service and kind of bring back classic concerts and just celebrate their catalog every year or two. It fills the coffers, and then they go off and they do their own projects. You know, they produce records and do side projects and write poems and live their lives. And so their 401k is their catalog that they can exploit on their terms. I love it. Like I think it's a great way to do it. They've got the fans, they've got a pocket industry, and it's a way for them to not have to go back up on stage in their 60s, which I probably don't want to see. And like they don't need to do that. You know, they can just be them and live their lives and celebrate what they were and who they are. Yeah,
and more power to them. It's that's an intelligent way to go about it. You don't have to be, you know, up there with the walker and the oxygen tank trying to, you know what I mean? Trying to keep touring until you drop.
I mean, it's sad. Like you do see, especially a lot of like classic blues artists and folk artists, like that's what they've got. They make their money on the road from ticket sales, and that's just their lot in life. And some of them love it, and some of them have a love-hate relationship with it, where they're like, I gotta get out there, you know? Like I look at Darlene Love, who, you know, she's got a huge thing every holiday season, and so she knows like around Christmas time, that's when she's getting paid. She's just she does her month or two's worth of shows, and then during the rest of the year she can kind of decide what she wants to do. But right now she's making her money. To each their own, man. I hope that Motley Crue make wise decisions and don't spend $150 million all in one place. They're a mess of a band.
I think I just saw a clip recently of Tommy Lee in a Lambo. So
Oh God, you have clothes on? Oh, okay, cool.
Partially, as he does, but
Yeah.
you know, that's not an insignificant amount of money. 150 million, 150 mil is quite a chunk. So,
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, good for them. More power to
Yeah.
them.
And then, so I'm not super well versed in Broadway and show tunes. I know enough. I played in some pit orchestras in like high school.
Oh.
But the industry is mourning the loss of Stephen Sondheim this
Right.
week. So I obviously such a huge, impactful person in that world. I feel like I can't speak highly intelligently to that, but I will say that my wife exposed me to West Side Story.
Yeah, that's
just
what
back
I was
when we
gonna
were
mention.
dating. Yeah, and it's great. I'm excited to see the new movie. I do like Steven Spielberg. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I do like West Side Story. I'm familiar with Sweeney Todd. I do like Sweeney Todd. I like Into the Woods. So I know enough, and obviously know enough of other stuff to know how important and impactful he was. So definitely a sad thing. But I think he was 90, 91 or something like that.
Oh yeah,
lived a really good life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a fan of musicals or show tunes, but I love West Side Story. There are a few select ones that I really, really like, and that
It's
is
great.
one of them. So
Yeah.
I don't know how you can. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about the new movie. I'm not typically big
Right.
on remakes. I
Yeah.
saw the previews in the theater on Thanksgiving. I took my kids to go see Encanto.
What did you see? Oh,
Yeah.
how was that?
It was actually amazing, believe it
Was
or not.
it?
It was fantastic. But it had been a long time since I'd been to the movie theater. It's been a real.
Yeah.
I think Joker was the last thing that I actually went to go see in the theater.
I'm shocked that you went to a movie theater. I mean, this is exciting.
There was nobody there. It was
Cool.
It was on Thanksgiving Day. It was a kids movie. I think there was like 2 other small families in the theater, so we were 30 feet away from anybody else.
Amazing.
But I could not believe. Me and my daughter were just looking at each other like, what is going on? There were like 45 minutes of commercials and previews.
Yeah.
And we were like, they were done. I got them a little snack pack, with the popcorn and the candy and everything. They were done with their food and drinks before the movie
That's
even
what
started.
they want you to do.
So by the time the
back
West
for
Side
more.
Story exactly. So by the time the West Side Story preview came up, I was already so annoyed with how long it was taking to get to this movie.
Yeah.
That I was annoyed by the preview. So I'll have to view the preview again in a different environment, a different context, because I was already irritated before the trailer even started. So
I hear that.
We'll see. Steven Spielberg is in a league of his own. So I'm sure it'll be good. It's just not something I'm necessarily interested in.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
We got a few things in music history here, right?
Yeah,
Let's hit
just
those.
try to hit that pretty quick. We're about to try to wrap up side A here. But just past the 20-year anniversary of the passing of George Harrison, as he aptly said, all things must pass, and he did on November 29th, 2001. Died of lung cancer, I believe. A few other music history notes from this week. December 2nd, 1983, MTV aired the full 14-minute version of Michael Jackson's Thriller for the first time.
So good.
Obviously now regarded as one of the most influential music videos of all time. And this is something I didn't know, but in 2009, it was actually inducted into the Library of Congress National Film Registry.
Cool.
So-
I mean, it should be there.
It should, absolutely.
The zombie moves are fantastic.
It's culturally significant. So
My daughter still wants to watch. It's this and Star Wars that she brings up every so often as something that she wants to watch, and I'm like, I can't. I mean, he turns into a werewolf and a zombie in his eyes, and like I can't as a father, I can't do this to a 6-year-old.
Yeah, it's a bit.
No, yeah,
for 6.
Yeah,
I was probably 8 or 9,
soon.
something like that when I first saw it.
Yeah,
but
nightmare fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, also on December 2nd in 2002. Liam Gallagher of Oasis was arrested and charged with assault after kicking a police officer in Munich, Germany, resulting in I think it was a bar fight. The singer ended up losing his 2 front teeth in the brawl, and later he claimed the police had pulled his front teeth out with pliers on purpose.
Also nightmare fuel. Oh my God.
Also nightmare fuel.
What? I mean, the Gallaghers are just an endless. It's so amazing. I cannot believe they're real.
An entertaining mess, but a mess.
I would not suggest following him on Twitter because it'll pollute your app. But check in from time to time because it's bananas.
Just go down that rabbit hole.
Stuff happens on there where I can't. It's in code. I don't know what's going on. So, my namesake, everybody. Yeah.
Nice. Well, speaking of nightmare fuel, so on December 3rd in 1976, a 40-foot this is a slightly more lighthearted nightmare. A 40-foot inflatable pig was seen floating over London after breaking free from its restraints. The pig was being photographed for the album cover of the forthcoming Pink Floyd album, Animals.
Wow.
The Civil Aviation Authority issued a warning to all pilots in the area about the loose inflatable pig. The pig eventually crash landed into a barn in Kent, where the farmer complained that his cows were spooked by the incident.
This is why we have CGI now, obviously, right? Like this is such a, hey, you kids don't understand what AOL Instant Messenger was moment, where we're like, hey, if we wanted something on an album cover, we had to make the pig.
Yeah.
We couldn't just like have a computer draw it, Like it's crazy that it was a real pig, a 40-foot Thanksgiving Day parade pig.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is crazy.
So nightmare fuel for those cows because
making bacon.
They're not used to seeing a 40-foot pig.
That's right. Yeah, pigs came home.
And then more nightmare fuel of a more serious note, and we talked about this recently, but December 3rd, 1979 was when that disaster struck at the Who concert in Cincinnati, where 11 fans lost their lives after being trampled. And that, obviously we're still, I think, kind of waiting to see what comes of the tragedy in Houston at Astroworld. But, it's really tragic to even think about.
Yeah.
And then one last tragedy, and then we'll get more lighthearted.
Yeah, this is bleak, man.
December 3rd, 2015, American musician, singer-songwriter Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots died on his tour bus right before a show at the age of 48. So,
wow.
Yep. And then they went on to, they had Chester Bennington in the band for a while. So, I don't know what's going on there. That's, I don't know what they're doing. But
dark.
Some quick birthdays, and then we'll flip it over. we'll get real lighthearted with some holiday gift guides for the vinyl fan in your life.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. December 1st, 1944. John Densmore, drummer for The Doors, who we just spoke about on a recent episode.
We did.
December 1st, 1951. Happy birthday to Jaco Pastorius, jazz bass player with The Weather Report. Also played with Joni Mitchell. And I think mentioned in a recent episode as well that he actually passed away of head injuries after a bar fight.
Yeah, it was something crazy like that. I do remember. Yeah.
These musicians getting into bar fights and getting hurt.
Man. But he still had his teeth, so that's good.
Well,
nobody pulled his teeth out with pliers.
Apparently not.
That's cool. Yeah, I hope not.
And then December 1st, 1977, happy birthday to Brad Delson, guitarist of Linkin Park. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Foo Fighters, December 2nd, 1968. Nate Mendel was born, bassist for the Foo Fighters, previously with Sunny Day Real Estate. And then speaking of Britney Spears, December 2nd, 1981. Happy birthday, Britney Spears. December 3rd, get this, 1948.
Wow.
John Michael Osborne, you know him as Ozzy, born this day in 1948. He's
about the same. Yeah, he's about the same age as my dad. It's one of those weird things when you see this kind of stuff and you're like, Dad, Ozzy. Like,
yeah,
man, this is weird. Yeah.
And then December 4th, 1944, American musician, singer-songwriter Dennis Wilson, co-founder and middle brother of the Beach Boys. Wilson actually drowned while swimming from his boat that was moored in Marina del Rey, California. Passed away December 28th, 1983.
I remember obviously, like, I wasn't even born when this happened. I learned about the Beach Boys, growing up. I was raised on Beatles and Beach Boys. And I remember, I don't even know who told me. It's pre-internet. Somebody told me that a Beach Boy drowned in the ocean or whatever. And I was like, this isn't real.
It sounds like a joke.
He's a Beach Boy. He sang
he can't
about
drown.
Surfing. What are you talking about? It's the craziest thing. How could that be real? But yeah, very, very sad. Like, the history of the Beach Boys is pretty bleak, and you got what's his face, Manson involved in there.
Oh,
it's a whole mess.
It's a mess.
It's a real mess.
And then last but not least, we just talked about him earlier, but December 4th, 1969, Sean Carter, you know him as Jay-Z.
Or Young Hove.
Or any other. He's probably up there. If we do that analysis of who's got the most nicknames.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got a bunch. Yeah.
He's up there.
Yeah. I'm going to make a list. I promise I'll start making a list. Yeah.
We'll do it eventually. But we got some holiday shopping to do, and we're going to make some recommendations. We got some categories we're going to go over, but we will do that when we come back on Side B on this 13th holiday episode of Retro Groove.
Oh boy.
Welcome back to Side B of this 13th episode of Retro Groove. We're kicking off the holiday season, and so we thought it'd be a good idea to put together a little holiday shopping guide for that music fan in your life, the vinyl freak, the collector, or maybe you're just looking for ideas for something to treat yourself. And we've got some thoughts on the subject. So we've got some categories that we predetermined, but we have not, this will be kind of fun because we haven't shared with each other any of the items or albums that we've selected.
It's kind of like a Secret Santa, except we didn't get these for each other.
Yes.
But how about this? It's the things that I would get you if I could.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, exactly. It's lots of thoughts for you.
Lots of thoughts, a number of different thoughts.
And yeah, I mean, you might have an audiophile, you might have just a person that you know who listens to music sometimes, and you're like, maybe I'll get them something. I don't know.
Yeah.
there's a wide spectrum of the way that people love and engage with music. And so I think we've touched on, with these categories, I think we hit a little bit of everything here.
Yeah. Yeah, we tried to do that.
Let's start with the fireplace, right? You get the stockings up. We're
Hung
thinking
by the
like
chimney with care.
Now with your stocking stuffer, our first thing.
Yes.
Did you go with something that actually fits in a stocking?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that because my wife came home today and she was like, I got some stocking stuffers. And then she opened up the bag and of the 5 things that she bought, 4 of them won't fit in a stocking. And I'm like, it's not a stocking stuffer. And she's like, well, no, it's like a small thing. And I'm like, yeah, small price-wise, you went to Five Below, but like, we can't fit. Where are we putting these? And it kind of dawned on her like, yeah, I guess they're going like on the floor underneath the stockings. I don't know.
Or you need a bigger stocking. Yeah. In my family, we went through this phase. Not a phase.
You use pants. You just have pants.
We're really big on stockings, and so when we were kids, my dad got so into the stockings that at one point we had stockings that you could literally fit a small child into the entire stocking. Like huge. Like our stockings were like 4 feet tall and like a foot in diameter. So
all right.
We
just
had some
onesies, basically,
major,
yeah.
exactly. Some long body sock is what these were.
I'm picturing like Teletubby style body socks hanging empty by the fireplace, and it's creeping me out. This is a weird 13th episode, I will say.
Definitely a weird one. But I'm enjoying it.
So for my stocking stuffer, I went with something that, and I'll say up front that admittedly, a good portion of the things that I have on my list are things I don't actually have. A lot of them are things that I want, but as I made the list, I thought it was going to be things that I have, and it wound up just organically being primarily things that I don't have, but I have my eye on, and I'm like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool if like Santa brought that. So, but this is one thing I actually do have. So I have a little card game called Mixtape. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mixtape.
No.
But it is, if you're familiar with like Apples to Apples or maybe Cards Against Humanity, whatever it is, where you got a theme and then everybody kind of says something. It's like Balderdash. But for Mixtape, a person pulls a card and it could say, you're the funniest song that you ever heard at a wedding, or the most popular song at a wedding, or it could be like the song that you had your first kiss to, or it could be like, what you put on when you're in the bathroom and you want to cover up the sound. Like there's all these different things that can be. And so it's everybody else's responsibilities to have a phone or a tablet or whatever with a streaming service pulled up. And you go through and you pick out the song that you that you think is most applicable for you, or that you think is going to get the most votes, because that's the goal.
Right.
And each person plays the song, and then the voting kind of happens, and the person who pulled the card kind of has the deciding vote usually. But hilarity tends to ensue. Somebody throws White Wedding on during the wrong moment or something, and it just gets really funny. It's like $20. You can find it pretty easily. Just get it online. But it's a fun thing. I find that it transcends. You need like at least 3 people, and you need people who have some sort of understanding of musical pop culture. But I've had parents and I've had different ages play along with us, and like you can get some really funny things tossed in there where the sort of pop culture or toilet humor or whatever it is that comes out in other games that are like this, where it's a little more open-ended. I do like the focus on music. It's like you need to have a song be your punchline or your nostalgia tie-in or whatever you're going to do to get the votes, as opposed to just being a very clever person who can come up with a funny thing in the moment. So it's a fun light game. It's a good mixer.
Yeah.
I like a good icebreaker at a family event or whatever.
Definitely.
And it's better than Uno. I don't need to play Uno. So yeah.
No, that sounds really fun. This one this was the topic that I actually had the most trouble with. But I did find something out, and it's actually more on the practical side. But there's a product that was actually developed and it's sold by one of my local record shops, but you can buy it on their website at breakawayrecordshop.com. They have a product called the Breakaweight, and what this is a turntable weight that goes on this spindle on top of your record. It's supposed to stabilize the record for hypothetically a more less likely to pick up vibrations from someone walking across the floor and causing the needle to vibrate from that. Particularly with like 45s that are smaller, it can weigh them down and make it less likely for them to skip or have issues. And one side actually has the sizing for the 45, so you can flip it over and it spaces your 45 for you. That's $40, and they're stainless steel, and they're actually pretty attractive looking. But it's called the Breakaweights, and highly
like
recommend.
that.
Actually, now that I'm looking at it, they're sold out on their website. So I don't know if I did that. It says they're coming back in stock.
Nice. The funny thing is, so I also had a vinyl weight in the stocking stuffer note that I had, and then I shifted it a little bit, so it transitions to the next segment nicely because there are a bunch of great weights out there, and I've always had my eye on them. However, my turntable is not that great. It's very old. It's an old belt turntable. Yeah. And I've always been concerned that putting a weight on some of my older warped records or whatever might kind of be too much for my setup. It might put too much wear and tear on my belt. So I am going to go on to this buying on a budget category. What I put in is a clamp instead. So if you don't want to go with a weight, there are some really cool weights out there. So I'm not saying if you have a newer turntable or something that you think can support it, I think a weight's the way to go. Clamps make me a little nervous because you are it's a little more cumbersome, and it's a lot of them. There's you put down like a felt thing, and then you put the record on top of it, and then you put the clamp on to hold it in place, basically. It just makes me a little nervous. I also don't know how often I would actually use it. But for a system that might not do well under the stress of some added pressure, it's a clamp is the alternative that I've been looking at. So while you've got the weight in your stocking, I'll put the clamp in a nice little box under the tree.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't even know that something like that existed. So that seems like
it's a good alternative.
Yeah, definitely. Really cool. So for my budget item, I went a little bit outside the box, and it is something that I own and that I've gotten comments on, positive comments on from people. So it's something that I love and I recommend. But IKEA makes an aluminum picture frame. I think it's I don't know, I'm gonna pronounce it wrong, but it's like Lomviken, Lomviken, and they have a particular size that is exactly the correct size for an album cover. It's 12 and a half by 12 and a half inches. It comes with a little white border thing. I can't remember the name of it. What's that thing called? But that can be removed.
It's the matting.
You can remove the matting, and it's wall mountable, and it's like kind of brushed aluminum look. It's really attractive and just like a perfect, literally the perfect size. I've never had any trouble fitting any albums in there, and you can change it out pretty easily. And if you have a wall where your record player is on, it's nice to have that display up, put some of your favorite records up there. Or what have you. And they're cheap. They're like $8 a piece. So definitely something that can make your little music area a little bit more attractive and fun.
I love having vinyl up all over I've got like different rooms have different records in it. I love the look of it. I swap them out sometimes. It's just cool. It's easy to interchange and kind of change the vibe of a room.
Yeah, definitely.
You can throw some Pat Benatar up, and then you can swap her out for Pete Townsend, or you just like throw whatever you're feeling. Maybe some Meatloaf or Huey Lewis. I've had one or two incidents, and it's not IKEA, so very good call. I've definitely bought frames that I thought, because they were shaped right and they looked the right size, and now I've got like two of them that don't actually hold an LP. Like, I think I could get the actual vinyl disc in there, but like I can't actually get the sleeve, like the artwork, into a couple of these frames. It's very strange that it exists, but it's just a little too small for a vinyl record. I don't know what else you would be putting in it. But I do have it just like sitting because I didn't throw it out, because I'm like, I'll find a way to use this someday.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
But I have two of them sitting in my basement here, where it's just like, someday I'm going to use this for something.
Yeah.
People will think that we planned this, I'm going to say, because it is so weird how all of your things are dovetailing into mine. I promise that we did not discuss any of this.
It's just how this show works, man. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, that's right. But so the next subject is the newcomer essential. And it's, if you have somebody who's getting into vinyl but doesn't know, like maybe hasn't built up their full infrastructure yet, but you're also not going to drop hundreds of dollars on this person. Right. IKEA Kallax shelves.
Yep.
Like, they're like $40 for the like 4 squares,
the 2x2.
Or like 60 for the 3x2 or whatever. Not breaking the bank. They fit perfectly. They look beautiful. And like, getting furniture for somebody for Christmas can be a little dicey, but if it's someone who's starting to collect vinyl, like, look, I love a crate. I love a cardboard box. They like digging through crates and kind of, there's been a part of me that wishes I could recreate my own record store in my basement where my vinyl is all stacked and you can just kind of thumb through it. I'm never going to do that. So I have lovely Kallax shelves that everything sits on, and it looks beautiful and it's well organized, and I highly recommend it. And who doesn't love IKEA? IKEA's great. You could live there.
You could live there. And I have the 2x4 Kallax in the walnut effect. That's where my records live. When they're not in boxes, in moving boxes like they are at this moment, but when they make it to their new destination safely, they will go back in the Kallax because it just works so well. I will put a word of warning out there. On the larger Kallax units, like the big, like the 5x5.
That's too much.
Not sure about the 4x4. I have seen some not safe for life images on the internet of collapsed Kallax shelves that were obviously way overburdened with weight. Right. So you have to make sure to get the right ones. If you have a larger collection, I would recommend getting a number of smaller ones. I wouldn't go bigger probably than the 2x4 unit, the 2 cubes by 4 cubes. I think, and then I think you're supposed to actually have those upright the way that they're constructed, because then it's one solid shelf across rather than the individual pieces in between. That's just a small caveat as when purchasing Kallax. Get the smaller ones, stick with the smaller ones. And the walnut effect is a little bit more expensive, but it looks great. I think it's like $80 instead of the normal 60 or 70. But definitely worth it.
Yeah, I will also say that I think if you get to the state where you need the 5x5, you probably need to sort out something that's not IKEA. I know that we're singing the praises of IKEA, but I do think that like at that point, you've created an archive or your own personal museum, and and it's time for some built-ins.
Absolutely.
You know, like I think it's
custom
you've gotten serious. Yeah, this is serious. Now, so before you go on this one, because everything's dovetailed, does your newcomer essential have anything to do with Kanye West?
Not necessarily.
Okay, good. All right, great. So then I don't think these collisions are gonna continue. But you go ahead.
That's fine. So my newcomer essential is protective outer sleeves for your records. I know it's very utilitarian. But it's something that I waited far too long to buy for myself and would have been overjoyed if somebody had bought them for me. There's a brand called Vinyl Style. That's style without the E on the end. You can get a 50 pack of them for $13, either on Turntable Lab or on Amazon. You can get a 100 pack for $23, and it just protects. You're moving them around the shelf. You're taking them in and out. It can be one extra step when you're, putting a record on, but it protects your vinyl. It's a, no muss, no fuss. You slip it in the sleeve and it's protected, can help, especially if you have, I learned this the hard way too, is particularly older records. Cats love to sharpen their claws.
Oh, dude, I thought you were going to say that, and oh my gosh, did I have experienced that too. I came back from work, and I was like, what did you do? Yeah,
so that's a thing, and this is
Genius.
This is something that can protect against that as well. So strongly recommend the outer sleeves, the protective sleeves for your records, strongly.
Amazing. I that is something I've never thought of. I have, sometimes when I buy records, they come with them, right? But I definitely have a ton that don't. It's like the Nintendo cartridges. Like some of them have those black things and most of them don't. That's a really good idea. I definitely should invest in some of those.
Strongly recommend it.
All right, so our picks didn't coalesce, which is cool. That's the way.
That's fine.
Can't keep that going the whole time.
No.
So I'm gonna go to that tricky person that has everything, and you're like, I don't. What am I gonna get that like they're gonna think is cool? I'm thinking like the audiophile who's got a bunch of stuff and is just like. You can't even figure out what to get for them. This is a pretty big ticketed item. This is I know that we've got a splurge big ticket category. I went a little ham on this one as well.
That's all right.
Because I think that it's really cool. So Kanye West, love him or hate him, released a stem player. It's the Donda stem player. It is this like 3-inch round rubber disc, and you can there's an online site that you can plug into. I obviously don't have this, but it's something I've been eyeing, where you can download the complete Donda album, all the stems from it, and then it's got this like sliding interface where you move your hand over these lights and you can kind of do remixes of all the songs, and you can reverse everything and boost stuff and like do loops, like a lot of different looping effects and everything. But the really cool thing is it's not just, it'd be kind of lame if it was just reserved for that one album.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Why would you ever do that? But you can upload any song to this, and it does a very good, it can't be great, but it does a very good, from videos and stuff that I've watched, a very good job of splitting out an MP3 of any song to the point where you can mess with it. And so it's this little handheld remixer. It makes stems, so it kind of isolates the drums and the bass and the vocals and the high end. And you can do a remix, and you can save it. You can make your own loops and make your own thing. It seems like such a fun toy that I would never use, but like I've watched like 10 videos about this thing. I'm enthralled by it. Just the way, like, the interface is really cool. It's the Donda stem player. Just do yourself a favor and take a look at it. You don't need to buy it for anybody. You probably shouldn't buy it for yourself. But if you've got $200 and you just love messing around with sounds as you sit on your couch or whatever, or like if you wanted to, like, if you're like taking a flight and you're like, I'm just going to be an EDM artist, you know, like, it's kind of a fun way to just spitball and be creative and toss stuff around if you're into sampling and loops and remixing. Well,
I was actually, I mean, you talked it up as if, like, I was imagining it, you know, being $1,000 or something. So $200 or $300 is not that bad for something with that kind of capability. I'm looking at it right now. And it seems
it's a high-end toy. It's a big kid toy. You know, we buy Switches, we buy video games, you know, it's less than a phone, but it also does one thing, and that's remixing songs.
Why not? It seems like a fun way to get into that if you were kind of interested in that but didn't want to drop, you know, $1,500 on an actual sampler.
Yeah, I'm also visualizing, like, if you give it to somebody who knows a little bit about music or knows a little bit about music tech, they're gonna sit there for a while and get their experience out of it and find something really fun to do with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for I'm actually in a similar price point. My gift for the person that has everything, I went with a gift membership to VMP. VMP is Vinyl Me Please. It's a vinyl monthly membership or subscription service, which there are a number of these out there. They're kind of, I would probably call them one of, if not the premier vinyl subscription service. They also do a lot of their own pressings. I have I have 2 of Fiona Apple's albums that were pressed by VMP. They always do high quality. Actually, they also are the ones that recently re-released all of the Mars Volta albums, and they're all on amazing looking colored vinyl. So it's a great company. They are on the more expensive side. Their records are typically in the $40 to $50 ballpark, but they are high quality pressings and typically are unique in one way or another. They have various membership, 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, but you also can pick from different genres. There's the classics collection, there's the essentials collection, there's a hip hop, or there's country. And like most of these services, and this is the reason why I went for it for the person that has everything, is because if you get something and you're like, oh, I already have this, or you don't like it, you can exchange it for a different record of your choosing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you're not stuck with what you get for that month. Yeah. You can send it back and get something else. Right. Which is most subscription services of any item are like that. But to be able to do that with a vinyl record is fantastic. So they're a good company. Again, they get a little bit of flack for being on the expensive side, but I think their prices are on the high end of reasonable. we'll put it that way.
I've definitely seen, like, the quality is fantastic. I've seen a lot of it. Now, if we were talking about hanging vinyl around the house, I mean, like, that is the kind of stuff that you can hang on the wall, and it looks really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I that's a great call. So for Christmas when you were growing up, were you the person who looked under the tree after you got done with your body stocking? Did you look under the tree and identify whatever it was that year, the NES or whatever, that you're like, that box over there, that's the one. That's the bike, right? You can tell it's a bike.
The bike you can usually tell.
Yeah, that's my video game console. Did you scope that out? I mean, I feel like most kids scope it out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I pretty much had an idea of what I was getting anyway because I would ask for it, but but now, yeah, I would definitely size up boxes and rattle them a little bit to try to find out how many Legos sets I was getting.
Yeah,
you can tell a Lego set.
Once you identified it, though, did you save it for the end? Was it dessert? Like, were you just like,
yeah, definitely.
Let me get everything else opened up because my Nintendo 64 is right over there. And once I open my Nintendo 64, it's all over. You know, like
I definitely did that because I was also the kid that if I got a bag of gummy bears, I would pour all the gummy bears out and then eat them in reverse favorite order. Like,
oh my God.
I would eat the green ones first because they were my least favorite, and I would save the clear ones for the end because those were my favorite
ones.
Yeah, they're like pineapple, I think.
Yeah, that's your favorite.
Yep.
Wow.
It would go like green.
Usually people go with like a red or a
red was the second favorite. Yeah. So I would go like usually it would go yellow, green, red, and then clear.
Wow. Okay.
So yes,
orange was in there somewhere.
I think orange. It depends on what brand and what you're getting, but yeah, I was definitely the kid that would save whatever my favorite thing was for last.
Okay. So then we did that here because our last item is our splurge.
The splurge.
It's the big ticket thing. It's like, what are you gonna get somebody when you're like, not that money is no restriction, but you can open up the wallet a bit more.
Yeah. Or if you really want to treat yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So for me, my pick is also a bit of a slippery slope. I have slipped and sloped down this before. I have slipped my parents down this slope.
Oh, wow. Generational slippery slope.
That's right. Yeah, slippage. It is Sonos. So I love Sonos so much. I will say that I do not love that all of the new speakers come with Alexa integration because I don't want her in my house.
No, not at all.
But you can turn it off. You can get non-Alexa speakers. Sonos is the cool thing about Sonos is that I had one speaker that I got at like a discount price initially, and I had it in like our living room, and you've got an app and it syncs up to your streaming service, or if you've got, like, I've got a lot of my vinyl and CDs ripped onto a hard drive, like a local cloud, it can sync that too. And so if there's stuff that's not on your streaming service, you can still easily play it from your phone on a nice quality speaker. But then the hook for Sonos is that, each room can act independently, or everything can work simultaneously and seamlessly. And so there's times when, like, my wife's taking a shower, and so now we have a Sonos speaker in the bathroom, and she's listening to what she wants to listen to, and I'm out in the living room and I'm listening to something else, and now my daughter's got one and she can listen to Avril Lavigne or whatever. There are times when all three of us are simultaneously listening to completely different things all over the house.
That's good.
And then there's times when it's like, hey, we're having a dance party. And then you just check the box of, like, every speaker in this house is going to do this thing, and you throw this on, and I don't care if you're doing laundry downstairs or if you're in the back room, like, cleaning up, or you're in the kitchen, like, everything is playing this song. It's completely seamless. the speakers are pricey, and to get the full effect of what I'm discussing,
Right.
you gotta start buying them. But
Right.
the ones that I'm talking about, I mean, I've had Sonos speakers now. My first one I got almost 10 years ago, still works. The OS does update, and certain things do kind of. They had a hiccup about 2 or 3 years ago where like some of the real OG, including my first speaker, were going to be kind of phased out of integration, and consumers freaked out, and so they were like, "Oh no! Actually, it's fine.
Never mind.
They're all still going to work. Don't worry about it."
Okay, that's good.
They haven't pulled that again yet, but honestly, it's almost every year, basically. Like it's every year or so for the past decade. I have gotten some form of Sonos thing.
Nice.
I got a bar in our living room for our TV. I've got the kitchen. I got the bathroom. Like, it is such a fun thing when you don't want to. I love a vinyl record. I love putting something on and having it be the centerpiece. But when you don't need that and you want the application of just immersing yourself, your family, the moment, during the holidays or during a birthday party, when you can just like throw on a playlist or throw on a radio station or something and it just goes. It is such a fun thing to do, and you can get the smaller speakers for people, and they're, it's like $150, $200. Like, it's not that crazy. The nicer speakers are $300-$400. But again, it's a slippery slope. I got one for my parents. They liked it enough where they were like, I'm going to get one for the bedroom. And now they're like, I think I'm going to get one and put it up at the pool. You get one and then you're like, well, I really probably need two. And then you're like, well, I could have three now. Right.
Exactly.
Like it definitely builds, but
well,
high recommendation from me.
Isn't there a way to hook up? I could swear that one of my friends has his record player hooked up to his Sonos stuff. Yeah. Isn't there a way to do it?
There's a bridge where you can run an aux into it. Okay.
That would be essential for me. That would be, if it didn't have that, that would be a deal breaker for me.
Yeah. I mean, you can, to use it as that would be really cool. I had never thought of that. But like, if I could hook my record player up to the bridge and have that play throughout the entire house, I'm going to have to look into this. Actually. I never put two and two together. I was like, it's just another speaker. But now I'm like, oh no, my house is the speaker. That's kind of cool. Yeah.
Why not? I mean, if you've got a record that you want to listen to, why not listen to it in the shower?
Yeah.
So
that's a great idea.
Sounds cool to me. That's what would sell it for me. Yeah. So speaking of, hooking up a record player to your Sonos stuff, I actually went with a company called U-Turn, and I don't know if you've seen these record players, but they make a turntable called the Orbit, and they are a small company based out of Woburn, Massachusetts, and they have various levels of their Orbit turntable. There's a basic, there's a plus, there's a special, but they have something called the Orbit Custom, where you can essentially, take what they have and create your turntable. And so if you go with the custom option, you're going to spend, I did like the most bare bones, you're going to spend like $200. And on the high end, if you add all the highest quality stuff, all the bells and whistles, you're going to spend $700. But there's anywhere within that range as well. So you can kind of, pick your budget and then grab what you want based on that. But it comes in a bunch of different colors and 3 or 4 different wood grains as well. If you want to spend a little bit more to get the wood grain,
nice.
You can choose either the plain black or a clear acrylic platter. And I've actually seen people modify their Orbits that have the clear platter and put LED lights underneath so it shines through the clear platter. Yeah, because it kind of glows through the whole clear platter. So
that's
really, really cool. So you can make some fun color combinations with that. And then, you can add a preamp into the turntable if you need one, rather than having to buy it separately. You can choose between 5 different cartridges, ranging from bare bones to, high end cartridges. So I built one. I was like, all right, let me see like how good I can do and get one that I would be super happy with and not spend $700. And I actually came up.
What are we talking about?
I came up with like a $270 turntable that I was super happy with. So
you're gonna make me buy this some night.
They look really, really cool.
I am gonna treat myself.
So like the only downsides is that they're not automatic, so you're cueing the the tone arm yourself every time.
That's fine.
And there is the option for the cue lever, just that little lever that you can, so you're not literally manually touching the tone arm yourself. And also the method of changing the speed from 33 to 44 RPM back and forth is changing the position of the belt. Which
weird.
But it's not as bad as you would think. The belt is visible and you can see it, and it's connected to the spindle, which is on the back of the turntable, or I should say it's on the top, but towards the back side of the top of the turntable. So it's just as simple as kind of, stretching it and moving it over. You don't have to like take the platter off and do anything crazy with the internal workings of it. It's right there on top.
It's an interesting design choice though. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think it's just, they keep it as simple as possible in the construction. And it's a lot less, moving parts than having an internal mechanism that switches the speed. And then also it keeps the motor itself simple rather than having a variable speed motor. So
makes sense. Yeah.
So that's I dig that. That's what I want. So that
now I want it too.
Yeah. Cause I was gonna go with this as my budget item, but then we kind of agreed that the budget should be $50 or less. But I'm still rocking my Audio-Technica LP60, which is probably the best quote unquote entry level turntable that you can get. I got mine for like $100 a few years ago. I think they're like 130 now. But if you're not looking to spend 300 plus on a turntable and you're just getting started, so that's my little side note recommendation is the Audio-Technica LP60 for like entry level.
I mean, this is what I want. I needed a turntable recommendation because it's going to happen at some point soon. Just like I've got my old Mac here. I'm going to have to replace that at some point. And I'm running on an old Sanyo grandpa hand-me-down turntable that I'm using, and it's got some beautiful nostalgia to it, and I don't want to stop using it, but at the same time it's a cheap Sanyo from the 70s, so I need something that's actually going to give me a decent sound and quality. So this sounds good. I'm gonna have to dig in on it. Now what we're gonna put on those turntables is another question, and as we kind of wrap up here, we both agreed, and look, there's something almost intrusive about giving somebody music as a gift. I've done it a few times. There's been a handful of albums and people with certain albums where I'm like, I'm giving you something else, but in addition to that, you have to have this. Like, I just think, and if you don't listen to it, it's fine. But music has such a personal connection that I both am inclined to want to share it with someone, but also it's a
surprisingly intimate gift.
It is. It's very, and it's like a presumptuousness to it, where it's just like, here it's like, it's different from giving you don't give DVDs anymore or a video game or anything, but it's like that. It's not like that where you're just like, here's the thing you might want to read, like give someone a book and you're like, okay, maybe I'll read this, maybe I won't, or give them a DVD, maybe I'll watch this, maybe I won't. But when you give somebody music, this could just be me, but when you give somebody music, it's kind of like, well, now like you're making me, like, I have to listen to this, because like the only reason that you give someone music is because you have a deep bond to it and you want to share it with them. So we're going to share a few must-have LPs here that, for me at least, it's albums where I don't have that feeling. Like they have deep meaning for me. I think they're beautiful albums, but I don't have that feeling
have
of
this.
Yeah, it's like no matter what, I'm not forcing my own experiences on you or my own opinions on you. It's just like universally, this is an album that I think everybody should probably have or have listened to, and it's worth just having in the stack so that if you're having, for some of mine, a sad day or some of mine a happy day, you have this thing to throw on randomly, and it's just there in your kind of quiver of cool records.
Yeah.
Now, I think you've got a few more than me.
Well, I have such a difficult time choosing these types of things, so I did end up, rather than 4 different albums, I came up with 4 different categories and then narrowed it down to like choose either this one or that one from that category. So it's really just, 2 per category instead of 1.
All right. Now my categories don't gel with yours as I'm looking at them here. But why don't you tell me your classic rock? Let's start with your classic rocks.
All right. So this is already just so cliche right off the bat, but if we're talking about, just classic rock albums, you got to go either Abbey Road or Dark Side of the Moon.
Right.
It's almost silly. It's like it's like the running joke in all the vinyl circles, like, oh, did that Dark Side of the Moon come with your turntable? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? I think
I have 3 copies of it.
It's just one of those albums.
Them. Yeah.
But it's also has something to do with the fact that album, both of those albums really, is a lot of people's first foray into the, if not the concept album experience, the whole front to back album experience.
Yeah,
because with Dark Side of the Moon, it's a concept album essentially. You listen to it start to finish. It's not an album that you skip songs. And particularly for folks that are new to vinyl, one thing that is kind of, other than literally having physical media rather than a digital file, is the fact that it is more linear. It's not, you don't typically go skipping songs and, only listening to your favorite 3 or 4 songs on the album. You typically put it on the first song, you let it play through the whole album, you flip it over, listen to all of side B. That's the typical vinyl listening experience. So with albums like these, you've got side B of Abbey Road that all the songs flow into each other in such a interesting way. And you've got so much going on the entirety of Dark Side of the Moon. It's just such a great vinyl album experience. So that was my kind of like classic rock full album essentials in my book.
Yeah, it's good. It's interesting because I'm looking at my list and I'm listening to your list and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to have all these. Like, I'm looking at my list and I have them all in some form. A lot of them are CD. I think I have one of mine on vinyl, but like I think I have Abbey Road on CD. I think it's just like a burned CD. I don't even think I own a proper copy of Abbey Road. That is something that I should probably have. Yeah, it's a good call.
What about
you? I'm going to try and align some of mine here as we go back and forth. So for me, I think the obvious in where I'm going here would be Pet Sounds.
Nice.
But
I considered that as well. I will put that out there. That was in the running for sure.
But I'm not going to do Pet Sounds.
Okay.
I'm going to do the album that I think is better than Pet Sounds, and I think that most people, I think, again, if I'm approaching this as something where it's like you can't not like this no matter who you are, I go to Surfer Girl, the album. Surfer Girl has In My Room, it has Little Deuce Coupe, it has Surfer Girl, obviously, it has Catch a Wave. it's got a bunch of it's got songs that have that normal catchy Beach Boy hooks that you love, and then it's got those deep introspective moments to it. It's got 4, or maybe you could say 5 massive singles on this album. So I think that even if you're not a Beach Boys fan, you will like this album because you'll know some of it, and it's very palatable. Pet Sounds is arguably their best album. I understand it's got some I mean, they have a ton of hits, so it's hard, but like
it's all subjective.
That has God Only Knows and Wouldn't It Be Nice, which are God Only Knows is one of the best songs ever written, probably. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But there's just something about Surfer Girl that seems more accessible to me, whereas Pet Sounds is that like slightly elevated, like like you need an intro to Beach Boys before you get to Pet
go
Sounds,
there.
in my opinion.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
That's good. I like it.
Let's go. You got hip hop, you said, right?
Yeah, I definitely, obviously, the turntable is a huge part of hip hop culture. And I went through a lot of different albums in my head, but I picked kind of a certain era. And I also, by accident, also played into the whole East Coast, West Coast thing. But I'm going with either...
Don't start something.
I'm going with either Enter the Wu-Tang or Straight Outta Compton.
Oof.
And
all right. Well, I don't think Wu-Tang and NWA had a thing. So
no.
I mean, it is East Coast, West Coast for sure.
No, I'm not trying to bring
You're not inciting gang violence.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to get kind of two, if not opposite ends of the spectrum, two different sort of perspectives on the genre is what I was kind of trying to do there. And they're both just absolute classic albums. Different styles, but you have, and I think also what I love is that whole, like the large group, rather than just, like the 1 or 2 or even 3 artists. I just love the variety of having, 5, 6 plus artists all contributing to this one album, and you get so many different combinations. It might only be 2 or 3 people on this one track, and then the next track it's everybody, and then on another track there's one main person and you've got 2 or 3 others contributing verses, and I love that dynamic. It's so much more interesting than just having like the 1 or 2 that are throughout the whole album. I love it.
It makes you study the music almost too. Like as you're enjoying it and as it's hitting you and moving you, you're also studying it because you're just like, all right, which voice is this now? As you're like,
who's that?
I remember like once I like Ghostface was just like Method Man was fantastic, but like hearing Ghostface verses, I would always be like, oh man, it's Ghostface. Yeah, it's Ghostface.
Yeah.
This is great. I can't wait to hear. What is this? Oh my gosh, what you gonna do?
I do that with Ghostface too.
Yeah, he's so good.
Do you have
call?
Do you have a hip hop album on here?
I don't have a hip hop album.
That's all right.
But I did go. I did go with Stevie Wonder.
Yes.
Songs in the Key of Life.
Of course.
I just again like it's probably the best the best entry point for Stevie. He's another artist that just has hit after hit after hit. But it's got Sir Duke, it's got Isn't She Lovely, it's got As. Like, there's so many songs on this thing that it's so listenable, it's easy, it's beautiful, it's funky, you can bop to it. It's something that I don't think anyone would ever be mad at having a copy of.
Heck no.
And if they'd never experienced it before, again, they're going to know a song or two, and the rest of it is just
they've heard them.
Carry them through it,
Absolutely. Good call.
Yeah.
Good call. And then I did pick.
You want to do jazz?
Yeah, I did. I did some jazz staples, and this was also. Well, the second one was difficult to pinpoint, but the first one, and I ended up going with like kind of the more slow the more slow jazz and I went with Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, which again is one of those like
fantastic.
Did you get that with your record player when you bought it at Target? Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's that or Birth of the Cool. Yeah.
So, but it's such a great that's a good record when you really want to chill. Like it's good to put on with dinner or to just sit in a dark room and cry. It's just it's such a it's called Kind of Blue for a reason. It sounds kind of blue. It's a very it's beautiful, but it's like it's music for a dark room basically.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side of that coin, I went with Giant Steps by John Coltrane. And so that's more of the hard bop style, which is if you're not accustomed to it, Coltrane can sound a little chaotic sometimes, but it's very expressive and it's a different side of jazz. It's not like the smooth jazz. It's very, very expressive and can be a bit chaotic, but never in an unmusical way. It's still very controlled. It's just the word is escaping me. It's complex and very expressive. So I recommend those to anybody who wants to get into jazz but doesn't know where to start.
Do I have those? I don't know if I have those. I'm sure I have them. Miles. I have both that and Birth of the Cool on CD. I don't think I have them on vinyl.
Yeah, I've got Giant Steps on vinyl. I had Kind of Blue on CD years ago, but that is one I still don't have on vinyl actually.
Yeah, it's probably a good one to I mean, it's right. It's exactly what we're talking about here. It is exactly something where it's like, man, I am almost ashamed for not having it because it is something that if it was just sitting there and I walked by it and I had the time or was doing something, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to put that on. Yeah. So I don't have a jazz, but I have a folk album that is jazz influenced. And it's Brighter Later by Nick Drake. So most people would go Pink Moon. Right. That was the moment. That was the thing. It was the Volkswagen commercial. It was beautiful. It's a gorgeous album. Pink Moon definitely is worth it. But this is one where I'm diverting from the every song. I think a lot of people probably know One of These Things First or At the Chime of a City Clock because they've been synced at a bunch of places. Yeah. But this is an easy album to put on and just have in the background. It's not something that I feel, again, is that intrusive to be like, you have to listen to this because it is a folky, jazzy album. It's easy to put on, but I think from top to bottom, it's haunting. It's beautiful. It's well orchestrated. It's very smooth. It can be background music, or like you said, you can sit and cry to it. It kind of gets me going sometimes. Brighter Later by Nick Drake is just, it's such a gorgeous album. And I've looked up all of mine to make sure that they're readily accessible on vinyl, and they are. Okay. I, again, only have this on CD, and I should have this on vinyl because it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and I've got a shopping list. So
that's going on my Discogs wish list as soon as we're done here.
Oh, it's so good.
Awesome.
It's so good.
So last but not least for me, I did want to go a little bit more modern and put some essentials in there, which is, it gets difficult because usually, when you're talking about essentials, these are typically, albums that have been around for a real long time. So each of these are only about 20 years old, but I went with either OK Computer, Radiohead, which we talked about recently in our Radiohead episode. It was difficult to pick the other one, but I ended up going with Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, which came out in 2001. And Wilco's not for everybody, but for the kind of music fan that collects vinyl or, enjoys the album experience, I think they've mastered the album experience, and they capture something that I think is kind of got lost. You could call them, some people call them dad rock. I get it. You know what I mean? It could be interpreted as soft rock, but it's a lot more thoughtful and intelligent than that. You know what I mean? It's never just, schlocky or mindless in any way. It's very smart, very smartly put together, and they're great musicians as well.
I think it's a good gateway album. Another one where it's like you can put your toes into what Wilco is in that album, and
yeah, exactly.
If you don't like it, it's not wasted time. Like, it was a good experience. And if you do like it, then oh boy, you got a lot of great stuff to uncover. Then a lot of
albums.
Yeah.
What's your last one?
So my last one, I've brought up REM a few times already. My last one is an REM album. It is Automatic for the People. Automatic for the People is... so I had a funny thing. My wife is not a big music head. Like, she knows her stuff. She knows what she likes. She knows what she grew up with. But I... Sometimes, you can project on someone a little bit. And so REM came up in conversation somehow on a drive this past weekend, and I was just like, I bet you could name 10 REM songs and you don't even know it. And she kind of came close, but like, I realized that at least 3 of them were from this album. I mean, Night Swimming, we talked about it. It's on the Jason Isbell cover album. And then you've got Everybody Hurts, Everybody Knows, Everybody Hurts, and Man on the Moon is also on this. But then you have The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight, you have Drive. I mean, this album is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It is such a perfect representation of what this band was and could do. It's all over the place, but it's cohesive. I love it. I love it. I love it. And again, like, I don't feel like it's like, it has enough things on it where someone would be like, oh yeah, Man on the Moon. I
know this song.
It's a good song. I know this song. Jim Carrey. Yeah, cool. So I love it. I'm pretty sure this is the only one on my list that I actually own on vinyl. I have it on vinyl. I have it on CD. It's so good.
I need it. That was the first REM album I ever owned. So I played the crap out of that album. That and Monster. I was all over those.
Monster's great. I had Document. Document was my first cassette. Like, before I even bought CDs, I got a cassette because it had It's the End of the World as we know it. And I was like, this song's amazing.
It's still amazing.
And there's a lot of great songs on it. It is. There's a lot of great songs on there, but it was a cassette, and it was on the second side, I think, or it's near the end of the first side, maybe. It was in a spot where it was like any cassette was, you have to like scroll through it to get to it. And so I remember like rewinding it and going back and just listening to that song over and over again and trying to learn all the words. And it's so good.
I love it.
So good. Yeah.
I love it. Well, any final thoughts? I think we're good.
I think the holidays. Yeah. This is great. I mean, we've got a few more shows to do before the end of the year, but this is your time to shop. This is your time to plan if you haven't already. And so hopefully this helps people.
Yeah. And so, from the entire RetroLogic family, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Festivus, whatever it is that you celebrate. Have a great one. And thanks for listening to RetroGroove. We are part of the RetroLogic Network. Check out the website, retrologic.games, for social links, merch, community, and more. Also, don't forget to check out the companion playlist that will go up along with the episode. And any parting words, Liam?
I should have had these.
Oh, nice.
But I don't, you know what? And my kid's asleep right above me.
Oh, okay.